My name is Jade Marsh. I work for RMJ USA, also American Tomahawk, and also Chattanooga Leatherworks. We're all under one umbrella. We're out in Chattanooga, Tennessee. This is John.
Hi, John.
Hey, I'm not gonna say his last name. He can say it if he wants. We're gonna talk a little bit about the American-made Tomahawk, the selection and things that you can do with it. Not just the items that we make as a company, although I think we make the best one out there, but some of the metal we use, some of the designs, and some of the functions of them. It's not just the weapon's the easy thing. That's the low-hanging fruit of what you can do with this. It's got a lot of other uses, and John's going to talk about a couple of those right now.
Yeah, and I'd say when you're picking your Tomahawk, things to look at is number one, you know, what are you doing with it? Are you a bushcrafter? You doing overland stuff? You're looking for it as part of your tactical rig? Then I'd look at the head. Is it a spike? Is it a hammer pole? How wide is your blade? A lot of that is really going to dictate what you can do. A Tomahawk is not really great at doing any one thing, except maybe making a canoe out of somebody's head, but it'll do a lot of things. Axes, of course, are better for chopping and splitting. If you're on a vehicle, you're supported, you can carry bigger tools. If you're on your feet, it's a lot better to have a Tomahawk because they're lighter. And some of the other things you look at is after head shape would be the handle. Wood handle, nylon handle, your preference, long or short handle. With a longer handle, you're going to get more leverage. You can do heavier work. With a shorter one, it'll be lighter. Lighter in your gear, you can be a little more exact with it. This is a hammer pole. American Tomahawk Model 2. It's got a bearded blade, a lot like you see on a Viking axe. The reason I really love these, again, you can hammer drop forged 1060 steel, but for breaking down game, I hunt Alaska a lot, I hunt Utah, I hunt out west, mule deer, caribou, elk. I've taken them down with this. As long as you got your skinning knife to cut your lines and make your opening cuts. I've used it like an ulu to go around the hams. Walks ribs right off. You can roll them up, no nicks to the blades. Same thing splitting the pelvis, going through that sternum rather than taking that little saw out. It's one less thing. Because all the guys in here that have been grunts or they have hunted long range, you know, ounces make pounds and pounds make pain. And especially if you're flying in something like a Piper Cub, a small aircraft, where they're gonna limit you to 70 pounds of gear, you really want one all-around tool that can do a lot of different things. And this particular design is really good for that. Spikes, on the other hand, if you look at the history of military Tomahawks, you saw a lot of spikes in the early 19th century up until about 1840. You saw them a lot in the French and Indian War. And the things they probably figured out, you know, I think soldiers, Marines probably been the same throughout history. Good at tearing up stuff, but good at hurting themselves. And they figured out quickly, if you're not situationally aware or blade aware, you can hurt yourself on that spike as quick as you can hurt the other guy. So you got to be really careful. I'd say these aren't for everybody. If you're ever thinking of purchasing one for a friend or family member and they're accident prone, I wouldn't go with a spike. I'd get them a hammer pole. The geometry on the spike plays a huge role in it, whether you're using it for a weapon or for a breaching tool. And again, especially with this long handle, these are really, really effective as a breaching tool. These have been used a lot overseas. Canadian Special Operations Forces use quite a bit of these in Afghanistan. Really good for making shooting ports, loopholes in those mud brick walls. If you need to shoot out, there's been some guys that have done, cut some mouse holes to get out of a hot spot. Couldn't leave the window, couldn't leave the door. Backside of that hard point that they went to was the only way out. They were able to hack them a mouse hole big enough to get the team out, pass rucks out, and do their E&E. Again, on the geometry, if you want to see on metal, the leverage and the strength, incredible. So I mean, they wouldn't slow down going through, and again, it's not dull. It all has to do with the blade geometry. Again, we call it the master key. You got a lock fixed up?
I do. And I just want to touch on the geometry of that. There's a lot of Tomahawks out there on the market right now. And one of the things I notice when I compare ours to others is the position of the spike and the angle in which it's ground. And that makes a huge difference when you're actually applying it to something that's hard. Applying it to something soft is no big deal, but applying it to hard objects makes a big difference. So the way this spike is ground, coming into that curve, makes a big difference. You'll see a lot of them, and now that you know this, you'll look on the web, you'll look on other knife retailers, and you'll see, oh yeah, I can see it now. The spike is ground in the other direction. So as opposed to this being ground down, you understand what I'm saying? This one's ground down at an angle. There's a lot of them that are ground up. It's not the way you want to do it. And you only realize that when you start hammering into hard objects and really realizing how it's going to break off or how it's not going to apply the force that you're trying to generate to that. Same thing with the edge placement. So you see a lot of axe designs that are made into Tomahawks. And it looks cool, but it doesn't practically translate very well. So coming off that straight line there, that top corner, that's where all the impact occurs. So you'll see a lot of double bearded axes, and they go, oh, I'll just take a double bearded axe, I'll shrink it down, I'll make it hand sized, it'll work. And by that I mean, the blade is actually way up here and way down here. But your force drive is right here. So you're not forcing anything into either biting corner, because it's that corner that bites in there. It bites in there. It's that force that drives it in. Now if you take that with a big double bearded axe, you're hitting on that top, that apex of that round, it doesn't do anything. It does something against soft targets, but not against hard targets. You want to do the master lock?
Sure.
So we've got, I had this set up outside, I didn't know where we wanted to be, but we moved it in quickly. This is a 450-pound chain, and this is a standard master lock. Again, this is not the best tool for a specific job. It is the best tool for 12 different jobs.
Can you move the barrel?
Oh yeah, sorry. It's lightweight, it's portable, one person can operate it, and you can carry it many different places. This tool,
Well, it's moving on me.
I had it set up in a better spot, but we'll make it do here.
Well, if I can get the ass on it. Well, I have my bite right.
I just learned today that he's 1 year older than me, so he's an old man.
Yeah.
Give him a minute.
You're in a chain link there. There we go. It's moving. There it went. So sometimes it's easier vertically, and you get down and you tell it pop that link, then pop the one I was in, and you can also bump the lock with it. Take it that way.
So it's about just getting the force in there. Oh, it broke the...
Yeah. Well, it cut the chain first.
It cut the
So
chain.
I'll cut a chain link. It'll pop a link, but it'll also bump the lock for you.
Okay, now good. So we broke the chain, tweaked the chain on that one. So we've broken everything up to, but not counting the new master lock that's the called the Magnum or their.
There we go. Yep. Pop it. Yeah.
They're super high grade locks, and it's not about the quality of the tool at that point. It's how much ass can you get behind this thing and actually snap it. Neither of us are big enough for that.
Now, a lot of times it's easier vertically. You can ring it off and horizontally.
Yeah, so if that was set up where I had it set up outside and we'd be able to set it up, tweak it down, and it pops pretty quick. Breaching in and out of cars, breaching in and out of doors, house doors, and attacking, at this point, we attack the weakest link. That lock is actually weaker than the chain at this point. So attacking the weakest link in that chain, you call it a chain of security, right? We all know security is just kind of how bad you really want to get through something, right? So in this case, in that combination, that lock was the weakest point, so we're going to attack the lock. If the chain was weaker, we'd attack the chain. If it was hinges with 1-inch screws, we'd attack the hinge. If it's a car window versus a car door, we'd attack that. So that's a breaching capability of this Tomahawk. John's kind of modest when he talks about his big game experiences with these type of Tomahawks, but John, tell him a little bit about processing an animal with that Model 2.
Yeah, I really like it on ribs. A lot of people carry a saw. You can. It's one more thing. But again, you can walk down your rib line with it and roll them up. You can hold it tight like this. You can go around your hams and use it like an ulu where you're cutting into that ball joint of the leg. If anybody's processed big game, walks right through the sternum. And again, a lot of slicing, particularly with this edge. You can use it like an ulu is one reason I like it. You can choke up on it. You'll still need your knife to make your incised cuts and to pull your skin, but all the processing of the animal can go on with this.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. So I'm talking about, when I talked about edge geometry and spike position, also talking about quality of steel. again, there's a lot of Tomahawks out there on the market. We use several different steels. We use a couple of imported German steels. Where's my CRV? This is a CRV, so this is imported German steel. We use a Nitro V, and then we use a lot of the crucible metals. So CPM 35 is 45, 3V, and the newest, I don't know if any of you guys are super knife nerds out there, but the newest steel that everybody's going to is the Magna Cut. It's a crucible metal. We're testing some pieces made out of that as well. But the steel matters, right? Having something that's going to handle cutting through where metal can cut other metal.
And I'd say don't be afraid of a light Tomahawk these days, because with the technology, drop forge technology with the steels, you can get a really superior blade that's a lighter weapon. Whereas used to maybe a little heavier, mint more quality. Now I wouldn't be afraid of a light Tomahawk from the right manufacturer.
And that one up.
Camo one or the orange?
Yeah,
Camo?
both.
It also doesn't help to be able to carry your gear in a high quality SOE tool bag. If you're nice to John and you've known him since 1996, maybe he'll make you one out of orange. So one of our more popular, especially in military police or fireman applications, is our Shrike and our S13. The unique thing about this is that it has a completely insulated overmolded handle. So even though it has a metal butt cap here, which unscrews, it actually screws into the overmolded rubber handle. The metal stops right about there. So there is, holding this handle and cutting live wires, there is no transfer of current to the user, even if you're touching the end cap, because again, it's insulated. Now, if you put a bunch of metal in there and they jump, then yeah. But outside of that, this is what sometimes we'll keep fire starting stuff or a sharpening file or other things like that. Another important part about metal selection. Can you, like in John's case, when he was out in the middle of Alaska, right? Yeah. There's no knife shop, there's no belt grinder, there's no way to sharpen your tool unless you have a sharpener with you, and your steel is sharpenable. So for those of us that have used knives our whole life, we know some steel is easier than others to sharpen. So having a steel that is A, durable, B, heat treated to the proper heat treating, and C, sharpenable in the field if you're going to need it. So like what reminded me of that is normally we have a sharpening file inside this handle, which again doesn't touch metal, so it's not conductive. Did you talk about the shorter one, the Kestrel? No. So we make
that's also a lighter one, right? The Kestrel.
Shorter and lighter, yeah. So it's a little bit thinner, a little bit shorter, and a little bit lighter. Like John was saying, don't be afraid of getting a tool that's a little bit smaller and a little bit lighter, because if it is designed correctly, you're still going to transfer all that energy that you want to either the cutting tip or the cutting spike. Does anybody have any questions right off the bat? We only got a couple more minutes here.
What's the longer one? The orange one. The orange one there. What's the orange one?
That's the Eagle Talon.
Okay.
You know how much I like orange?
Okay.
The cool thing about being in the shop now, in the position I'm at, is I get to tell people what to do. So I said, hey, I want an orange one to match my orange bag.
Got it.
That's all it is. It's the same one as this. I didn't want to scratch both of them up.
Got it.
Sorry, I've got notes, because while I'm not afraid to publicly speak, I'm not really good at publicly speaking yet about this stuff.
And I'll take him down a rabbit hole too, so we got to.
I asked him to come do ninja stuff.
I can't do it. Okay, so I've known John. Let me give it a little backstory. I've known John since, I want to say 95, but it might be 96, somewhere in there. And this guy had a store in Oceanside, California, on PCH, that he shared. He didn't share the building, but they had an adjoining wall, a shared wall with a knife company, some knife maker friends of ours. And he knocked a man-sized hole in the wall so they could walk back and forth from shop to shop.
Well, that was bullets that did that.
I wasn't gonna say all of that.
Yeah, that was bullets.
So this guy's been sewing for me personally, he's been sewing nylon since '96, and for other people longer than that. So I go way back with this guy. So anytime he says, "Hey, will you come out to one of my events?" Now that I live here in Tennessee, of course I'm gonna come out and be a part of it. So that's the main reason I'm here, not to pimp Tomahawks or anything like that. Although they're kind of fun. They kind of pimp themselves. Sorry, John, give me a story.
Oh, I'll talk a little bit about the what we call the Model 1. Some of you vets may recognize this is the old Vietnam Tomahawk. one reason American Tomahawk came to be is a guy named Pete Lagana, World War II veteran. He's the one that started the company originally. He had friends that were still in Korea fighting the Red Menace, and they were taking their issued hammer pole axes and grinding a spike on the back so they could deal with the commie threat. So Pete designed this for guys in Vietnam. And the company was going to go away if we didn't buy it. And the thing that was blasphemous to me was that this was originally made to kill communists in Asia. And if we didn't get it, the only place you were going to buy it, it was going to be made by communists in Asia, which just didn't sit right with me. So we kept it to keep the history alive. It's still got a national stock number. They're in the Striker vehicles in the Pioneer kit. The spike geometry is okay. It's not as ideal as this. But again, you know, we keep it priced under less than $200. So every grunt, every guy out there that wants one can afford it. But again, that's just a little bit of history on American Tomahawk and Pete. And the Model 1, the Vietnam Tomahawk.
Rangers are issuing. Rangers get an issue kit with some kind of hatch Tomahawk or something in there.
I don't know if they're issuing. They put these in as a in the NSN. It's for like a combat search and recovery tool, like a crash axe. Yeah. And it's also in the Pioneer kit. And I think the ones that get resold to the military every few years is because somebody put a 5-finger discount on one, you know, out of the Pioneer kit. They do the inspection and they're short and they have to buy them and replenish them.
We've seen guys open probably car hoods open with them. We've seen them can open or doors.
Oh, yeah, tires. They're great for
break and rake
on a window.
Yep.
These are great for that break and rake. One more thing on the old design of the back spike versus the new design. And I don't know why I keep hammering this, but I didn't understand it until I spent 6 months in the shop and really using these and trying them in different things. The distal taper on these, both on the edge and the spike, if you look at that spike that was designed 60 years ago and then that spike, every edge on here tapers away from the center, which is important because if you look at that spike and you envision sticking that spike into something and that something closes around that spike, now you have to fight back against that edge to get it back out. I know I'm getting kind of nerdy about edge geometry and things like that. I think it's important. You don't have to do that with these edges. They all taper away from the center, which means it's going to pull out of whatever you put it into much easier. Yeah. Better than a blood root, right? Is that what you said, or
yeah,
that type of function. So it's not going to get stuck in there because it tapers, and it's also the same thing on the sharp edge. Same distal taper, pulling away from the edge, so as you pull it back out, it's going to get stuck. It's important. Again, you don't know it until you start sticking it in things. That's what she said, and then you can't get it out. Any questions?
I have one. The back spike on the one that you said you can use to process big game.
Yeah, the hammer pole.
Okay, so that's just a hammer?
Yeah, it's a hammer pole, yeah. So it offsets the weight of the blade, it balances it. But again, you know, tin spikes, things like that. For them vehicles, it gives you a hammer. Yeah, so it gives you a bit more of a functional tool. You know, if you're doing camping, bush crafting, overlanding, things like that. And it's a little bit safer.
But without the pointy, or I don't know what you call it, the back spike on the other, it's not as good of a tool if you need to.
We go through a car window.
She's asking which one should she buy.
Well, again, what are you primarily doing with it?
I know exactly what she's asking.
A lot of it depends what you're primarily doing with it. You'll get more function if you want to breach and be in an urban environment and do things. I would go with the spike with the longer handle. But if I'm going out to hunt, camp, things like that, bushcraft, I'd take this all day long. I can choke up on it, I can shave with it. It's just a lot more functional in camp and for processing game. But on any of it, you know, I was told one time, never bargain hunt on pistols or parachutes, anything you hang your life on. A Tomahawk could be that depending on where you're going and what you're doing. But I always encourage, it's always American made for two reasons. Number one, we keep the jobs here. Number two, you know, you look at these companies, if you're bringing in an axe full retail and you're selling it in a big box store for $40 and you have cost of goods sold and you shipped it here and then you still got retail margin on it, you're selling it for $40, how is that possible? Well, that's possible because slave labor made it. Right. You know, because somebody...
And it shit steals.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, shit product, but the fact that, you know, there's somebody's blood, sweat, and tears literally put in it and they're not getting paid. Because they're probably also making Halloween decorations, you know, in Commie China with a Falun Gong. So that's the other reason, you know, human rights issue. Yeah, human rights issue and keep the jobs in America.
So how do you, if you're on the move, or in Alaska, or wherever, how do you sharpen that by yourself in the field?
I've got a short file and I've got what's called an axe stone, but even then, usually on any of your blades, even my skinning knives, when I use them, as soon as I feel them bite, as soon as I feel them not what they're doing supposed to, I stop and put that edge geometry back in. Because if you keep pushing, you'll nick it, you'll lay it over more. As soon as it doesn't bite, if you'll work on the edge right then, it goes back a lot quicker and it stays sharper longer. That's the big thing, is just don't get to the point where you're meatheading or forcing your way through it. You know, as soon as it's not biting, and especially with an axe stone, they make little round ones. I've got my grandfather's, he was in the Civilian Conservation Corps way back in the 30s in Copper Hill, Tennessee. I've still got his axe stone, and if you take that and you can see the geometry on it, and you just move it in a circular motion, you can set it back. Or a nice little bastard mill file, a short one, you can even break it off in your vise so it's short. Just dress that edge. If you dress it as you go, you're fine. If you use it hard, you're not chopping properly, you're chopping on the ground like I've seen some meatheads do, and you find a rock, not much is gonna hold up to that. You know, then you might have to regrind your edge. But if you're smart with it, you've got good axemanship, axewomanship skills, you respect your tool and take care of it, yeah, it shouldn't be a huge problem for you. It's just the exotic steels that they're making now, a lot of those, they're great picking up, they're super sharp, but if you lose that edge, unless you've got a baiter or a knife grinder, sophisticated belts, you're not bringing that edge back to what it was. I mean, you'll be ready to start your Glock before you get it sharpened with an Arkansas stone.
Does that help?
Yeah.
We do that with we'll take the file that he's talking about at the shop and we'll cut them into threes because you don't need that much file. And we'll carry it with our gear or in the handle or wherever. It doesn't take a lot. And by maintaining it often and correctly, it takes a lot of the problem out.
You think it was Abe Lincoln had a saying like if it took 7 hours to fell a tree, he'd spend 6 hours sharpening the axe? On the prep.
Yes, sir.
Did you guys make an appearance on a TV show alone?
Did we?
The TV show alone?
I don't know. If it did, we weren't aware of it.
Yeah, I don't.
Maybe, yeah. I don't know.
I don't think I've ever seen one. I've heard of it, but I've never seen it.
See the show, bro?
No.
It's good.
It's good?
Good.
It's possible. There's a lot of our stuff that's out.
They just take a bunch of people, sit them out in the middle of nowhere, and wait until they starve. And
Last man tap out.
Gets $500,000.
But they can't eat each other, right?
No, they
can't.
They can't kill the other 5 real quick.
5 or 10
Yeah, they're alone.
Oh,
And they get an axe. That's
They were really,
Yeah,
they stabbed a loves ox to death with a knife.
I haven't seen it, but I'll look it up.
Yeah.
We're good. We're about to time out. Anything else we good?
we buy your stuff with the company. I didn't think.
Oh, sorry. Our company is RMJ USA, RMJ Tactical. We sell stuff on the website, but not that much. We do it in small production runs, and we sell a lot of stuff to some of our dealers. They have it out there. And then American Tomahawk is our other Tomahawk brand. And Chattanooga Leather Works does all our leather and kind of.
There's knives and swords.
One more time.
Yeah, we've got a couple swords. American Tomahawk and RMJ Tactical.
They're here in Tennessee.
We're in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Come
We
see
make
us in
everything
Chattanooga.
all on one roof.
We'll go with you. Go.
Where's that? We did one for you, didn't we? With the...
Yeah, I got.
All right, thank you, folks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, man, I'm talking about realest, one of the realest to try. My family, SOE, got the tools to survive. Yeah.